last week we talked about two different spiritual states that we can be in. So a state of spiritual consolation and one of spiritual desolation. And what I want to do today is to focus on spiritual desolation and particularly what we can do when we're in it. Because it's very difficult. How do we handle it? How do we get out of it? What do we do? These have been difficult times, this past year, and I'm sure many of us have felt, this kind of disquiet or agitation or feeling like there isn't hope, or maybe we're not feeling God's presence, or we're feeling God maybe has even abandoned us. All these feelings of spiritual desolation are very real, and if we're not feeling them now, we felt them before, and unfortunately we will feel them again, because this is part of what it means to be human. So what can we do? The first thing that I want to say that's important is that this is a time for fidelity. It's a time to be faithful. That's hard. It's hard when we're not feeling good, when we feel awful, we feel sad, or whatever that is. It's difficult, but we have to remain faithful, kind of dig in spiritually, and remember we're gonna make it out the other end. Okay. Then we also want to pay attention to kind of our thinking, and that we don't have these universal negative thoughts, you could call them. So when we start to generalize and think things that taint the past or taint the future, So what do I mean? So, maybe you think, well, God's never really helped me in the past, or he didn't help with this, or God didn't help with this, so certainly God's not going to help me, in the future. We start to think, well, God never cares, or won't ever care. These thoughts that aren't true, that are a lie, and are from the evil spirit. So we want to make sure we pay attention to that, because that is not of God. We also want to make sure when we're in a state of spiritual desolation that we don't make changes, because it is the evil spirit is kind of the one that's counseling us when we're in this bad time. So we want to make sure that we don't make changes when we're in this bad kind of, mental and spiritual place. So for instance, if you committed to praying every day during Lent, you were in a good state of mind, of spiritual consolation, you decide, I want to pray 10 minutes a day, make sure I do this, okay? So you start, the first few days you pray, and then spiritual desolation hits you. And you just think, I really don't feel like it. I just don't want to do it. I'm not really feeling God here. And so you don't pray. The next day comes, you don't pray again. And then before you know it, you're not praying, and you've made a change when you're in a state of desolation, right? So this is what St. Ignatius would say. We do not want to make changes when we're in a state of spiritual desolation. And certainly we don't want to make a change, when it's even a bigger change, something like a job change. Maybe if you're in a job that, you always had liked and was passionate about, and you felt like you were using your gifts and your talents, and then desolation comes, and you start to have all these doubts, and you start to think, well, I don't know, maybe I'm not really this good at this, or maybe I don't like it, and these doubts cloud us. That's a work of the evil spirit. Often doubts can be just that, and so we want to pay attention to that, and we don't want to make changes when we're in this kind of dark place and in this desolation, space of desolation. And then it's important also for me to note that there is a difference, and I mentioned this last week, between kind of spiritual and non-spiritual desolation. So, if you're constantly, stressed out and exhausted because you work too much, and it's affecting your life and your health in really negative ways, that would be like an earthly, desolation, right? In that case, you want to make a change because it's not healthy. It's not helpful to you, right? Or, God forbid, if you're in an abusive relationship, an emotionally or physically abusive relationship, that's an earthly desolation. But you want to make a change. You want to get out of that situation. So that's really important to recognize the difference between when I'm in a kind of earthly desolation and what a spiritual desolation is. Because certainly there are times where we need to make changes. If it is an earthly desolation, that's not healthy or helpful, or could be even harmful to us. Then the last thing I want to leave you with is that what we want to do when we're in desolation, we want to remember, so St. Ignatius says, we want to remember that we have a loving God in our life, a God that is faithful and is there for us. Because what does the evil spirit want to do? The evil spirit wants us to think that God forgot about us, that God doesn't care, right? So what we have to do is be sure to remember the ways that God has helped us, has been there for us, has loved us. And so, there's a lot of ways that we can do this. For me, journaling has been really helpful. That's something I started actually last Lent. And then I can really see how God is active in my life. And I can then see the positives when I go back and read the journal and see, oh yeah, God was present in this, right? Or if there were periods of darkness, seeing that, oh, I was going down the wrong path here. The evil spirit was at work. That's really helpful. Or, the second video I did, we talked about the daily examine, looking back on the events of our day. We can see how God is active and how God cares for us and has loved us, and even the small things. So those are two ideas, and certainly I'm sure there are other things that you can do. So I hope some of these things have been helpful. What we'll do now is take a moment. We'll settle in, and I'll offer some reflection questions and music. So let's take some time, calm our hearts, and take some time for prayer and reflection. My friends, I pray that whatever storm you may be experiencing right now, that you can still strain to hear that music, and that you can keep on singing. May you know and experience God's peace in the week ahead. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to our time together next week.